Until we go talk to those people, yeah.
Right now, I am deep undercover at a landlord's convention in Manhattan. I figured this was the only way I was gonna be able to talk to an actual landlord. Why do I think this is the only way I'll be able to talk to a landlord? Well, let me catch you up. In the previous two videos, I tried and failed to talk to various landlords on the 2017 Landlord's Watch List, which came out in 2018.
Totally wrong place.
Where the heck are their goddamn offices? Instead, I ended up talking to a landlord's lawyer, off the record, a landlord's PR guy on the phone.
Can you tell him to call us?
With my idiot friend who told me he's a lawyer.
I used to stand over there. You told me to stand over here.
And another guy at a cell phone store with hundreds of P.O. boxes.
I'm the cell phone guy.
Oh, the cell phone guy.
That are a front for landlords who don't want to be found.
Mainly cell phone, mailbox on the side.
The store is a mailbox.
Two landlords
See what happens.
threatened to call the police on me.
They threatened to call the cops.
Call the police, officers.
Okay, call the police.
And I got a cease and desist letter from another landlord's lawyer. Also, at my telethon, where we're calling all 100 landlords on the watch list, we haven't given up, even though we still haven't gotten one landlord to commit to an interview. All right, so now you're all caught up, okay?
What do you got going on here?
So, like I said, I'm undercover at a landlord's convention, and it's about to get awkward as hell when I ask this auditorium full of landlords a bunch of hard-hitting questions.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Can everybody hear me?
Oh, wait, actually, you know what? Before that, let me show you what happened when I did one last Hail Mary and showed up unannounced at the office of Adam Stryker.
Adam Stryker, number 6.
To see if I could get one landlord who would allow me to interview them on the record. Adam Stryker is the president of Friedman Management Company, which also manages all of his other properties.
So I was wondering if we could maybe just talk to him for a minute, or... Okay, cool. Thank you.
Things were looking up. They didn't call the cops on us. So I just settled in and made myself at home.
You're Adam Stryker?
Hugh, I'm one of the managers.
Oh, okay, yeah. We just wanted to see if maybe we could get an interview with Adam Stryker. We're doing something about the watch list.
I just feel like anything I say will be, twisted and used against me.
Well,
I see that camera's...
Right, yeah. Was it okay if we...
I didn't give you my consent to film me.
Oh, okay. Well, can we do an interview with your consent?
Possibly. Let me talk to the boss and I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That's the closest we've come to maybe actually getting an interview, but we'll see.
Yeah.
He didn't throw us out. That's the thing.
5 minutes.
Okay.
We got in, baby. I finally got an interview with someone who works for one of the landlords on the list.
So I've been authorized to speak to you guys.
Okay, great.
So ask your questions.
Awesome. You guys were 17 on the list before.
This is the 2016 list.
Was it 9 or 6? You guys moved up based on the HPD and DOB violations.
Because again, I've given you guys 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So you're an independent filmmaker?
Documentary.
Yeah, I did
filmmaker,
burn
yeah.
through that 5 minutes pretty quickly. He's not wrong about that much. I'll give him that. He's right. He's right.
We've been. What? I gotta ask. Yes.
Ask a specific question.
Ask a specific question. What happens when a tenant calls you with something that needs to be fixed?
So, I can't speak for all the buildings on the list.
Okay.
I manage about 4 that are on the list right now.
Okay.
And I try to have a relationship with my tenants. I tell them, look, I want to get the repairs done immediately for you, and I want them fixed. Here's my cell number. Text, call me anytime.
Right.
24/7, and I get them done.
You've reached the office of Adam Stryker.
Well, they never called me back. Remember that? That was from the first episode.
Please give us a call back to schedule that appointment. Thank you.
Oh man, Rajiv's the best.
Bam! We got it. All right. Okay. I mean, a lot of people.
Let me just preface.
Go ahead.
I'm old. I've been doing this for almost 23 years.
Okay.
If we're talking about just HPD.
Yeah, and DOB.
And DOB, well, I'll skip with HPD.
Okay.
As you may or may not know, it's very difficult sometimes to get violations removed from the HPD website. A, sometimes the tenants call and then will refuse access.
Mm-hmm.
B, HPD, as you may or may not know, does not give you an actual window of when they're going to be there.
Right.
They'll show up in the middle of the day when the tenant's at work.
Right.
So very often, even though we've done the work to correct the violation, the violation still won't come off the record.
We need more inspectors in HPD and also on the state level.
But HPD refuses to work with landlords like that.
Right.
And maybe your camera will actually get the landlord side of things.
Right. Well, that's what. Thank you for talking to us. Like that's what we've been trying to do.
I'll talk to you for another 2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes. Do you think the watch list is an unfair rubric for identifying bad landlords?
I would say that it is. I mean, the tenants just call 311 without knowing, acknowledging that they have an issue.
Right.
I'm like, I would have gotten this corrected. I didn't know about it,
How many of your units are rent stabilized, and are you taking care of those tenants as well as you are people who are paying market rate?
Listen, that's a loaded question. I mean, we take.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're agreeing that it's a loaded question.
Well, yeah.
Of course, listen. All tenants are treated equally, whether they're rent stabilized or free market tenants. Everybody's treated the same. This is the other side of the story that you don't hear about.
This is we're getting the other side of the story from you guys right now.
Well, I'm a little skeptical that it'll be
that'll
wind
make
up
the
like
cut.
this, especially with this pretty plaque.
Can we give this to you?
Yeah, he actually saw that plaque that we were gonna try to give to him right away when we first got there.
If we couldn't get an interview, we were gonna leave this. In recognition of the 2017 Worst Landlords list presented to Adam Stryker. Mr. Stryker.
So I can see that this is slanted as a
well, we
anti-landlord interview.
We want to get both sides of everything. Can we give this to you?
No thanks.
Okay.
30 more seconds.
30 more seconds.
Okay, so they brought up some good points. I'll admit it. Okay, I'm not above that. Hold on, not done yet. So I wanted to see what the landlords were saying when they didn't know the cameras were rolling. So let's check in at the landlords convention. Now you can go.
What was my cue again?
I emailed asking for a press pass, but they refused, saying, sadly, we've welcomed press in the past who have come under false pretense. So I decided to come under really false pretenses.
Douching up to look like a real estate guy.
And pretended to be a landlord myself.
Do I look douchey? Looks good? Okay. I look douchey.
So I told the vendors that I was a landlord with rent-stabilized units that I wanted to deregulate by pushing turnover. Why? Because once an apartment is vacated, a landlord could raise rents by 20%.
And what we do as well is we'll go into a space and it'll be a 2-bedroom, and then we'll just set up the living room, and we'll turn a $2,000 apartment into a $3,000 apartment.
Okay.
I do that all the time.
And you're able to do that even in the rent-stabilized units?
I mean, legally, there's stuff that you need to assess what.
Right. I mean, legally, that's illegal, if that's how you want to assess it.
I've done that before where they don't know it's actually a rent-stabilized apartment and you can charge them more and they don't even realize it. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
But I'm just saying, that's one of the ways where we get creative. We can turn 3s into 4s, sometimes 2s into 4s.
Right. This is a common practice with landlords trying to squeeze as much profit as possible out of a property. Take it from our old friend, David Shorenstein.
Only way these deals make sense is to go in there, see what can be converted from 1s to 2s, 2 to 3s, 3 to 4s.
Do a 5 into a 7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah, that's great.
And people isn't 7 people too much? But if you have
with the millennials, they stack them on top of each other.
The guys, they call themselves millennials now.
And this has long-term consequences, as tenant organizer Linda Kelly explains.
The guy said, aren't you glad we're here? I says, no, because 6 of you come, you pay $3,000 a month rent. That's $500 a piece, which is doable rent. You stay 3-4 years, then you leave and the rent stays the same.
I mean, you'll love us.
Cool.
I'll give you my card.
Yeah,
I'd
I'll
love to
give you
do
your card.
business with you, man.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff, nice to meet you.
Yes! I'm doing business with. No, you're calling him. Call him!
Oh, God!
Back at the telethon, we're gonna get an interview with one goddamn landlord by the time this is done. We still didn't get in touch with one landlord. Here yet. We've got a magician. She's coming. But until then, we still weren't giving up. Call, leave a message. Figure it out, Brian. Also, we lost Rajiv, but gained a few other callers.
This is your telephone.
And Brian, for some reason, was still there.
Just keep going. Guys, we're getting these numbers.
Hi, Sergio.
And we had a lot of great acts entertaining everyone.
Chapter 8, Epidemics of Particularly Dreaded Illnesses. Orange is the new black. The white girl is a Trojan horse.
Everybody still making phone calls? We're getting through the list.
You're on the 100 worst landlords in New York. And it turns out you're one of them.
And eventually, even good old Brian Melony, Brian Mahoney, had to leave. We may have lost Brian, and we still didn't talk to a landlord, but we didn't lose the war.
Thank you, Brian.
Yet.
Leave the cup, though.
At the next stop on my whirlwind tour of the Landlords Convention, I talked to a landlord attorney who specializes in, among other things, how to detenant rent-stabilized buildings.
Housing court does not detenant buildings.
I'm right over here behind the column, by the way.
Right. What detenants buildings?
Landlords running the buildings correctly. I am honestly, and I'm not going to say this on stage,
right.
50% of the time people leave when they get my notices.
Yeah,
because my notices are like 18 pages long. Good people don't want to live in a rent-stabilized apartment for 35 years.
Good people? What does that even mean, good people?
Really? Why is that?
Would you want to live in a rent-stabilized apartment for 35 years?
Well, I mean, I own a rent-stabilized building, you know.
I have lots of tenants that want to live there until they die.
Some do, but I'm just saying.
I got a few that I know are going to leave until they die.
I believe you. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
Back at Adam Stryker's office,
again, we haven't been to any of your buildings.
I pulled my last Hail Mary and asked if they could take me to some of their buildings.
Perhaps you should have been to some of our buildings before you came here.
Can you take us to some?
I cannot.
Oh, okay.
So, we just went
I'm
ourselves.
doing a documentary on the worst landlords list, and the owner of this building is at number 6. I was wondering if I could talk to you about your experience living in this building.
We wanted to see if everything they said was accurate and checked out with their tenants' experiences of living in their buildings.
Hello?
The only problem was that we couldn't get... No, actually, no. That wasn't a problem. We got in, baby.
I'm Jeff, by the way. Chris, nice to meet you. You've been here for 3 years. What's it like if there's repairs that need to be done?
We had a leak in our shower ceiling that took like a couple of months to get fixed initially, and then it wasn't really fixed. It was just patched over, so the leak kept coming and coming, and the longest we took was like 10 months to get it fixed.
We'd had a leak in the bathroom for a long time, and it wasn't until that leak traveled down to the new apartment downstairs that it was addressed.
Because I just was there today talking to one of the guys at Friedman, and he's saying that they fixed problems within an hour. They get someone there.
If there is some sort of a leak or some sort of an emergency, it's usually fixed within an hour or two.
Oh, that's news to me.
Is it okay?
Within the hour?
That's what he said. We're just talking to people about what your experience has been like in this building, if you've had problems with him or not.
Tons of problems.
Really?
But I don't want to be on camera saying though. I'm sorry.
This tenant didn't want to be on camera, but he said we could use his audio.
When you call to get repairs, how long does it take him to do that?
I've been here maybe 14 some odd years, and I've gotten to the point that I just do it myself.
A lot of times, and I've had this experience in other companies I've worked for, it's the same tenant calling HPD over and over and over and over again. You can go on the HPD website and look at any building. You'll see apartment 3, apartment 3, apartment 3, apartment 3.
So I did exactly that and looked up one of the buildings we visited on the HPD website. There were only 2 apartments that called more than once, and every complaint, except for 2, was about there being no heat and or hot water.
The tenants just call 311 without acknowledging that they have an issue.
Right.
I'm like, I would have gotten this corrected. I didn't know about it, you know?
Do you call 311 sometimes?
We haven't. I think we only called it once when we didn't have hot water.
According to the website, he actually called about there being no heat.
If it's something simple, you call the super. If things don't progress, then like naturally you're gonna call 311.
Nobody's really gonna call 311 before they call it the landlord and maintenance.
That's what he was
saying. If it's not getting done,
right?
Of course you're gonna go
exactly
above and beyond.
Friedman Management has a large portfolio of buildings. If we were truly like some of the real slumlords that do exist in Manhattan, we wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Right. I could give you 33 years of experience behind that line.
Back at the convention, I found a mentor in an older and wiser landlord who took a liking to me. I think he saw a spark in my eye that reminded him of himself when he was a young landlord first learning how to evict tenants himself.
If you get the rent stabilized,
you can't destabilize it. You kick someone out for no reason. Okay, yeah.
He also told me the hardships of being a landlord in a city with the second highest rents in the country.
There are no less than a dozen laws, anti-landlord, pro-tenant harassment laws. There's not a single law if a tenant harasses you.
That's true. That's a good point.
Point is, you got to be very careful on who you're harassing. You pick and choose. I pick my battles based on the probability that I'm going to win.
But you do that every once in a while. You can come down and just...
I come down like a ton of bricks and we get evictions. And they're very rare in Manhattan.
Excuse me, what? Evictions are rare in Manhattan? Are you
fucking kidding me? Okay, so it's true that Manhattan has a lower eviction rate than the other boroughs, but New York City overall has far and away more evictions than any other American city. So, with all due respect, shut the f up, sir.
Unless somebody really has annoyed the hell out of me, I'm now in a position where I can make his life difficult with no hope of winning.
Sure.
And still not being under harassment. But that's not economically sound. That's just to get my yayas out.
But when you first had these buildings, were most of them rent stabilized and those
I had only rent stabilized and rent control apartments.
Next, we talked to a vendor who was selling a smart video intercom that recorded its tenants' comings and goings.
My thing is I've got a lot of rent stabilized units.
We kicked them out.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Sublet spot, yeah.
Perfect, yeah.
So he kind of caught himself and added sublet spot, but I never said anything about illegal sublets. I just said I have a bunch of rent stabilized units, and he blurted out, we kicked them out, before I could even finish my sentence.
Units.
We kicked them out.
This is my, are we getting all this? Face. Once more, onto the beach, dear friends.
This is as opposed to putting a covert camera on the floor facing their apartment.
You can do all that stuff too. We've wired up buildings with cameras. Unless you're doing the covert stuff.
Covert stuff is,
hidden camera, but I would do
hidden
that.
camera, yeah.
And the covert
I wouldn't
stuff
do that.
is lots of luck getting rid of the rent stabilized tenants. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Obi-Wan, bad landlord. I hope I make you proud.
So you're building where you've got rent-stabilized tenants. You put this on the front door and you track everybody coming in and out. Tenants, guests. Generally, this will tell you whether you have a case or not. It's like 9 times out of 10, that's all you need to know is whether I have a shot of kicking you out of your home or I don't. If I don't, I'm going to leave you alone and focus on making money elsewhere. I'm going to offer you a buyout. And that's it, you know, or I'm going to have my building catch back. Maybe you buy the building next door and you do some work excavating and then things fall. I don't understand. Things fall all the time. Accidents happen.
They do.
So yeah, we were joking, but when I asked a general contractor at the convention if he could make construction noises that were purposefully too loud
and kind of unbearable for the other units and stuff.
Yeah, there's something we could do.
to force out tenants in rent-stabilized units,
Leave a jackhammer running in the apartment.
which is called construction as harassment.
That's something you guys do, or?
I mean, that's not a typical request that we get, but I'm sure it wouldn't be an issue.
He had no problem agreeing to it.
So, okay, this is me. Oh yeah, this I don't have a pocket there. Anyways, so
Are you like recording? Is this like
No, I've got No. I mean, yeah, I am recording, but not on my phone. I'm using a camera. You know, covert stuff.
Covert stuff.
Covert stuff.
Covert camera on the floor facing their apartment.
Next door to the tenant who didn't want his face on camera was another tenant who didn't want his face or voice on camera.
Can I talk to both you guys?
I don't like the camera, so.
Oh, okay.
So I had an actor friend read a transcript of what he said. So that's what you're gonna hear now.
There was a time he took my wife and I to court on numerous occasions, alleging that we owe rent, when it was really because we had been living here so many years, and because they really wanted to get us out of the apartment.
Right.
The new tenants, they're paying $2,000 and $3,000, where I'm paying maybe like $1,300.
They're basically trying to take advantage of the hot real estate market. They're in neighborhoods that are rapidly gentrifying, and so they want some of these low-income residents out of their building.
And that's exactly why I asked you if they're taking care of the rent-stabilized tenants, as well as the market rate tenants.
People who are paying market rate.
Listen, that's a loaded question. All tenants are treated equally, whether they're rent stabilized or free market tenants. Everybody's treated the same.
They took us to court 3 times, and each time the judge told him, why are these people here? Write a letter of stipulation dismissing this case right now.
The landlords use this institution as an integral part of their strategies to get tenants out of their apartment.
As tenant advocate Fitzroy Christian explains, using housing court to evict rent-stabilized tenants is a common practice
eviction mill
for landlords trying to make as much profit as possible on their properties.
If you read the fine print on the court papers, it tells you that not showing up for the court proceedings could lead to your eviction, because it's like you've given up your opportunity to prove that this is not true. So that's what they want. They're hoping that you'll say, oh, I paid my rent, I don't care what they do, and not go to court. But you gotta go to court.
So look, the fact of the matter is that the way businesses like this make money is by forcing out people in the rent-stabilized units so they can maximize their profits. That's why companies like Silver Shore can buy and sell these buildings for tens of millions of dollars, because whoever buys these buildings has the expectation of kicking out whoever lives in these rent-stabilized units and then raising the rents. You don't have to be a slumlord to do that. That's just how business is done. That's the definition of putting profits over people. We talked to a bunch of their tenants who were unhappy. As for the other tenants we didn't talk to, check their Yelp page. They have a ton of one-star reviews and a lot of the same complaints that we heard.
Let's say Landlord Godzilla sums it up.
Landlord Godzilla?
Yeah.
Hello? Oh. At the Landlord Convention audience Q&A section.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Can everybody hear me?
I played a character who was sort of a composite profile based on all the bad landlords I'd been investigating.
I'm trying to get as much sort of profit out of the buildings as possible. I'm trying to, get evictions and whatnot. Force some people out, but it's, it's very stressful. It takes a lot. It's a full-time job just doing that.
Apparently I did a pretty good job because they put me on their website. Here I am lurking in the background. I was actually in a lot of the photos.
I'm wondering if, I've had a few times I just sort of wake up sort of in the middle of the night. I'm like, Jesus, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying?
And I finally had the chance to ask a question that's been bugging me this whole time.
My question is, I could sort of open this up, what other people are doing to sort of sleep better at night, if that's a question. So that's my question. If anybody just wanted to open that up.
No one should be managing a building where they're doing anything that they're saying or doing that if someone else saw, they would question. You should carry yourself, not only probably with managing your building, probably with life, that there's someone watching and there's someone listening to everything that you're doing that's on a higher level.
My dad has to go to court because he said they don't pay rent, but we have all the receipts.
He has no way of ensuring that these repairs are getting fixed.
So the purpose of this video was to shine a light on the experiences of tenants living in the buildings of New York City's worst landlords and to hold those landlords responsible. Despite all my efforts, I was only able to get one landlord's rep to talk to me. These landlords have managed to escape any sort of accountability.
Enough is enough. Like, they need to stop.
I think if there was one thing that I learned, it was... Hold on. Are you hearing that? What is that?
It's about to start! Repeat after me, the vote is about to start!
Oh, right, Albany. I almost forgot.
In New York City.
On June 14th, 2019, Albany passed the most progressive set of tenant protections in a generation. The Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019 not only removed many of the loopholes and incentives that landlords used for years to deregulate apartments in order to raise rents, it also permanently protected all the rent-stabilized units left in New York City. Permanently protecting these apartments means landlords no longer have the incentive to force out their rent-stabilized tenants.
Like, my dad has to go to court.
They took us to court 3 times.
Because he said they didn't pay rent, but we have all the receipts.
Because they couldn't raise the rents even if they were able to evict them. In fact, according to the Wall Street Journal, there were 35,000 less eviction cases filed in housing court as of November 2019. However, the legislature only passed 8 of the 9 proposed housing bills. The Good Cause Eviction Bill, which would have protected all renters, whether they're rent stabilized or market rate, did not pass. Andrew Cuomo, who receives a ton of money from the real estate industry, never publicly supported it. Also, the roughly 300,000 apartments lost to deregulation will not be re-regulated. And, not surprisingly, the real estate industry is challenging the bill in court with several different lawsuits, and many landlords are keeping rent-regulated apartments empty rather than renting them in the hopes that the courts or new legislation will strike down the new tenant protections. And our old friend Jay Wasser from the first episode is suing to get out of buying a building with 38 rent-stabilized units for $6.6 million because they assumed they would be able to, quote, avail itself of the then existing rent stabilization, which to translate means we don't want to spend all that money if we can evict people and then jack up the rents.
And so they want some of these low-income residents out of their building.
And so we were going to end the video around here, but then came the pandemic. In spite of all the tenant protections passed in the summer of 2019, New York was on the brink of a major crisis. 1.2 million households owe $2.2 billion in back rent in New York State alone. Thankfully, due in large part to the sustained pressure the tenants movement put on state reps, Albany was able to pass a state budget that covers all this back rent using money the federal government set aside for nationwide rental assistance. Also, the Good Cause Eviction Bill was actually reintroduced, so call your New York State reps before the legislative calendar ends this June.
We need universal renter protection.
And tell them to vote yes on it. And if it doesn't pass this session, call them again when it's reintroduced in the next session. And that
if we don't get it, shut it down. Everywhere we go, people wanna know. People wanna know.
When we leave housing solely to the whims of the free market, people too often lose out to profit, and even a good landlord might become a bad one if there's enough money in it for them. And this is the heart of the tenant movement. The conviction that housing, like healthcare, is a human right. And it's time we started treating it that way. The landmark tenant protections passed in Albany were the result of decades of tireless work by tenant organizers. And most of the organizers you've seen in these videos are women. And most of them are women of color. So while most people were sitting around complaining that rents are too high and how New York City is dead, they were getting organized and actually doing something about it. And so all of New York has them to thank for permanently saving the 1 million rent-stabilized units available to all renters. The rent laws passed in the summer of 2019 were a huge victory for all New Yorkers. But the fight to make New York City affordable and livable for everyone is far from over.
And let me say this, do not pump your brakes. That's right. Do not pump your brakes. Continue to push. Because the landlords are going to try to figure out how to push back. That's right. And we got to be ready to fight back. We're ready. Yes. Are y'all ready? We're ready. New York City.
Okay, next up is number 100.
Woo! Hey, hold on. I want to do 100. Let me get, are we at 100?
100.
Your call cannot be completed.
What?